22 years ago, John Reynolds went to his work at a scrap metal yard. His wife was expecting him home in about midday. They were going to go out and buy a washing machine. He didn't arrive home, so his wife contacted his brother Michael, who subsequently went down to the yard and found John deceased inside the building. He'd been the victim of a vicious attack, and as a result the police were called.
Hello everybody, it's TJ. Welcome back to New Zealand Mysteries. This is a case from Christchurch, New Zealand, and it's one that has always interested me a little. It's about a scrap dealer called John Reynolds who was bashed in his scrap metal shop or warehouse, or whatever you want to call it. And stuff.co.nz have done a great job doing a write-up and also a podcast that I'm going to tell you about. So I want to thank everybody that is returning. I appreciate all the subscribers that keep coming back. It is so awesome. I love yous all. And if you're just here to hang out, please give me a chance. I don't do makeup, I don't do stories, I just try and get straight to the facts, and I'd love to have you on board. So let's get into this. So we're going to stuff.co.nz, and this podcast also, and the article is written by Blair Ensor and Martin Van Benen from stuff.co.nz. Now, this first article was released on July the 6th, 2019, so just a couple of years ago. John Reynolds was late for lunch. His wife had watched him head off to work at his Christchurch scrap metal business in his white Mazda Bongo truck about 8:45 a.m. He'd told her he'd be home by 1 p.m. That cold, wet Sunday afternoon, April the 28th, 1996, they'd planned to go shopping for a new washing machine. Right, just a quick look at the map before we go ahead. Here is New Zealand, and this big red dot in the South Island is the place where we're looking at, Christchurch. And we're going to go in and have a look at what suburb the scrap metal place was in. So it's kind of in the centre of the town, really. Let's get back to it. Reynolds, a keen gardener and collector of antique bottles, was unfailingly reliable, so when the 55-year-old father of two didn't turn up for lunch, his wife began to worry. Calls to his business, Garden City Scrap, went unanswered. Just after 4 p.m, she drove to the scrapyard in Hazeldean Road, a light industrial area just outside the central city, and found it locked. There was no sign of John or his white truck. She called his younger brother, Michael, several times, but he suggested they wait for a couple of hours. When she called again at 6:10 p.m, he realised something was wrong. As Michael approached the entrance door to the business, he noticed one of the two locks was missing. Using a spare key, he went in to find the alarm off. By torchlight, he worked his way around the yard. As he walked back towards the main door, a body on the ground near a set of scales appeared in the beam of light. It was his brother, lying face down in a pool of blood with a significant injury to his head. Michael crouched down and put his hand on his brother's back. He felt cold and had clearly been dead for some time. Michael went to the office and called 111. Police in Christchurch were already investigating a gang shooting and the rape of an elderly pensioner in her home, so resources were stretched. Detective Inspector John Doyle was off duty and had to be called in from home to lead the homicide inquiry. John was the victim of a brutal attack. He'd been hit repeatedly around the head with a blunt instrument, likely a piece of heavy metal. There were no injuries to indicate there had been a struggle, suggesting he was hit from behind and incapacitated. If robbery was the motive, the killer had missed $2,200 in the top pocket of John's work shirt. It's possible they found cash elsewhere on his person. In John's office, police found smears of fresh blood that they believe were left by the killer. A tray where he stored small amounts of money to pay suppliers appeared to be missing. The whereabouts of John Reynolds' white truck was an early focus of the investigation. It was a good bet that whoever stole it knew something about the murder. The vehicle was found dumped at the suburbs rugby club in Hoon Hay later that night. The police quickly identified and arrested 2 young boys who were seen in the cab as it made its way across town earlier in the day. The boys were only aged 15 and 11, and they were troubled youngsters who had left their boys home earlier that day to have some fun. The pair took John's truck from outside his workplace, Garden City Scrap, how about that? Sounds better. About 1:15 p.m. with one of the young men behind the wheel. The boys told Stuff it was too good an opportunity to pass up. The driver's side door was wide open and the keys were in the ignition. He and his fellow young lad had no idea that John had been murdered, and their taking of the truck was just an unfortunate coincidence. Police thoroughly investigated the pair. CCTV footage taken from a nearby business showed that they had not changed their clothes after they stole the truck. The clothes were free of blood, as was the truck. Police all but removed them from their suspect list. Police were quickly able to establish John's movements on the day he died. He worked 7 days a week and was a creature of habit, not a pub goer or a socialiser. His life revolved around work and home. The day he was killed, John Reynolds went first to the Parkhouse Road rubbish depot in Wigram to pick up a bath and scraps of pipe. By 10:15 a.m. he was having a coffee with Michael, an electrician who had his workshop in the industrial unit next door. Sundays weren't particularly busy. By the time Reynolds was ready to shut his doors, he'd had only 3 customers, and all were regular suppliers. This lady is Alison Bainton, and her brother Russell knew John Reynolds. The first customer that day was Russell Bainton, who arrived about 11:25 a.m. with his sister Alison. The Baintons, like many others, called Reynolds John the Pom. Alison told Stuff there was nothing out of the ordinary about their visit. Their scrap was weighed and came to $47. She remembered seeing a big wad of rolls in Reynolds' top pocket. He paid them $50 and told them he didn't have any change and that they owed him $3, I should say. As the Baintons were about to leave, a red Morris Marina backed in towards the door of the scrapyard. The driver was Ben Johnson, a father of 5 with a bank robbery conviction who had his 2-year-old twins in the car. The 41-year-old, who has since died, unloaded some bits and pieces of scrap and was paid $12. Just as Johnson was leaving, plumber Simon Walsh arrived in his van. It was now somewhere between 11:30 a.m. and 11:45 a.m. Walsh dropped off some bits of copper and other odds and ends and was paid $30 from the tray in John's office. Walsh was John's last known customer for the day. What happened after that is unclear. It's almost certain that after Walsh left, John closed the roller door of his premises and got ready to go home. The roller door had a smaller door for easy entry when it was closed. The smaller door latched automatically when shut, and Reynolds usually locked it with a padlock when he left. Police investigating the murder found the padlock in his office. Russell Bainton told the police he drove past the scrapyard at just after midday, on his way to the Crown Hotel. John was outside smoking a cigar. Bainton told police, "I held up 3 fingers, indicating I still owed him $3, and he gave me a friendly wave." That is the last known sighting of John. Whoever killed him left few clues behind. There were no apparent witnesses, and the weapon used in the murder was not found. John Reynolds was born in England and had 3 siblings. His parents, Tom and Mona, emigrated to Australia in 1960, settling in Melbourne, but found it too hot. I would too. They found it better in New Zealand, and they moved to New Zealand, leaving John and his sister Frances, who were in their late teens, behind in Australia. School was not for John, and once the family moved to Australia, he went straight to work. He had a succession of hard, heavy, well-paid jobs working in places like gold mines and oil rigs. In 1965, when he was about 24, John Reynolds followed his parents to Christchurch, where he worked as a gardener for a hospital and later as a storeman for the railways, dabbling in a bit of scrap on the side. When he was made redundant in 1990, Reynolds worked for another scrap dealer and soon started his own scrap business in the building at 220 Hazeldean Road. He and Michael bought the building from his old boss, McIver. John the Pom was clearly no angel. In 1974, he was working at the Addington Railway workshops. He and a Samoan workmate, Mr. Tuia, were playing cards with another worker in the canteen. John accused Mr. Tuia of cheating. The pair went outside to settle it man-to-man. During the fight, Mr. Tuia, who had an enlarged heart, suffered a heart attack and died as he lay on the ground. It's a picture of Mr. Tuia. John was initially charged with assault, causing grievous bodily harm, but the charge was reduced to common assault, for which he was fined $750. Tuia's eldest son David told staff he was sure no one connected to his family was involved in John's death. The answer to the murder probably lay in more recent times. John Reynolds dealt with a lot of people down and out on their luck and addicted to drugs and other substances and were hungry for cash, so police concentrated on that side of his business. Tanya Gorrie was a drug addict who sold a lot of scrap to Reynolds. It was well known he always carried cash, and that was likely his downfall, she told staff. People knew that he didn't ask too many questions. He was as crooked as they come, she said. That's Tanya Gorrie there. The industry was rife with speculation about who had killed John, and police were flooded with information. Some possible witnesses and potential suspects were never identified. One was a white-haired man with a light beard who was seen leaving Garden City scrap at noon on foot and putting something in his wallet. A blonde-haired woman in a short skirt, seen in a street close by about 12:30 p.m. on the day of the murder, also never came forward. Police had no shortage of suspects, but zeroed in on two in particular. One was this guy, Ben Johnson, who had visited the yard about 11:30 a.m. on the day of the murder. He'd sometimes do odd job for John Reynolds and had asked him for a more permanent job. Johnson initially told police he had not sold Reynolds any scrap on the Sunday, but later admitted he had, and it was stolen. The lie didn't help his cause, and he admitted being hard up. However, Johnson told police that Reynolds was his friend and emphatically denied having anything to do with his murder. If he was the killer, why would he have left the money in Reynolds' shirt pocket, given he knew it was there and he was obviously hard up? And why would he turn up well in advance of closing time and risk being seen by other customers? Police didn't take him at his word. They raided his home looking for forensic evidence linking him to the crime, but found none. That didn't mean he could be ruled out. Police also looked closely at another man. This was Kent Gorrie, Tanya Gorrie's brother. At the time of the murder, Kent Gorrie had been out of prison only 3 months and had a long list of convictions, mainly due to an intravenous drug habit. His offending covered a whole range of criminal activity, including violence. Police won't say why they began to investigate him, but it's fair bet they got a tip from someone. Gorrie, who is now in his 50s, has had a troubled life. His prostitute girlfriend, Mallory Manning, was murdered in 2008 after she was picked up from her spot on Manchester Street, which is a case we have not covered yet. Tanya Gorrie told staff she lied to cover for her brother after John's murder because of something I thought, and I was completely wrong. She was confident police focused on the wrong people and no one in her family had anything to do with the murder. Kent Gorrie admitted to staff that he lied to the police when they first spoke to him. He told them he'd been at home all day with his then girlfriend, but when they'd actually been to a house to get some stuff for making drugs. I didn't kill John Reynolds, he said. Fitzgerald told Stuff that she was with Gorrie all day and that he had nothing to do with the murder. She declined to comment further. Gorrie's mum, Frances Gorrie, said she had expected a visit from her son and his girlfriend on the day John was murdered, but they didn't turn up. He told her he'd spent the day in bed. Several years later, he told her he'd lied and that he'd actually been involved in a drug deal. And I mean, I can see how if you were contacted by the police and asked some information about where you were on the certain day at the certain time because someone was killed, I mean, if you're doing other illegal things and you just got out of prison, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be keen to tell the police exactly what you're doing. So I can understand that they lied to the police. Doesn't mean they murdered John Reynolds, just means that they were doing other stuff, perhaps. He said it would have been worth more than his life was worth had he admitted where he was during the day with those people. I believe that, and I still don't believe he had anything to do with it. So, he's not going to give information about the people he was with and what he was doing. It makes sense. Despite never arresting anyone in connection with the case, Doyle told Stuff last year he believed the case was solvable. Allegiances changed and people might no longer be prepared to protect people they once had. Conscience could also play a part. Some people just couldn't get any peace until they got it off their chest. It's never too late, he told Stuff. These are the two guys that wrote this article and also did the podcast. I'm going to put everything you need in the links below. There's going to be links to these pages. So let's go next. Alright, just quickly, if you have any information on any of the cases I cover, including this one, please contact Christchurch Police on 03 363 7400, or you can go to Crimestoppers 0800 555 111, which is completely anonymous. I've checked it out. You can call police on 105 or go into your local police station. If you want to get hold of me, nzmissing@gmail.com. If you want to send me some case suggestions, we are on Facebook and podcast, so just search for us. I want to give a big shout out to Carla, who went to buymeacoffee.com/NZ Mysteries and bought me a few cups of coffee. And thank you very much. It actually goes a long way because we're not going to get monetized. We talk about stuff that people don't want to hear about. So every little donation helps. Don't forget, please, to like and subscribe. This is the easiest way to help the channel, and it only takes a few seconds for you, but it means the world to me. It means a lot. All the information, including all links you need, everything will be in the description box below or the show notes for the podcast. Thank you, guys. Let's keep going. Now, this is very interesting. This article was released exactly the same day as the last one. And the very interesting thing, possible breakthrough in cold case murder of Christchurch scrap metal dealer John Reynolds. After they released the podcast, apparently someone came forward with some information. So if you ever think that podcasts that we do, like I do, or YouTube videos that we do looking for information don't work, this means that they do actually work. It shows you that they can work. So hopefully more information comes out in this case and other cases. But let's go ahead and read it. A man has come forward claiming to have crucial new information that could solve the decades-old murder of Christchurch scrap metal dealer John Reynolds. Now, again, this came out in the middle of 2019. Hang on, I better check that, eh? Yep, July 2019. Detectives have had several meetings with the man, suggesting they're treating his information seriously. Police are tight-lipped about the homicide investigation into John's brutal death and will only say it remains active. Breakthrough comes after a Stuff podcast, Heavy Metal, looked in depth at the cold case and revealed the identities of several persons of interest to the police inquiry. The man says a woman came to his home looking for an alibi for the day of the murder and later told him she was the lookout while Reynolds was bludgeoned to death at the scrapyard on April the 28th, 96. He claims to know another woman with corroborating information. With my statement and the other woman's evidence, there's enough here or enough there to go and arrest them, she said. John's sister says it would mean the world to her family if someone had the guts to stand up and be counted and gave evidence that solved the case. In the weeks after the launch of the podcast Heavy Metal in 2018, the man contacted Stuff and claimed to know the identity of a mystery woman seen getting out of a white van near Hazeldean Road about the time of the murder. He said the woman was a drug addict and prostitute involved with several people who stole scrap metal and tried to sell it. She'd stood guard wearing a blonde wig while others, known as drug addicts and thieves, went into the scrapyard to rob John. He provided some information to police soon after the murder, but it is unclear what form it took and whether investigators were able to act on it. Detectives visited the man at his Christchurch home in late 2018 and contact has continued since. In May, the man contacted Stuff again, frustrated at the police's lack of action, and provided further detail. The woman had come to his home after John was killed looking for an alibi, he said. He said, I just about had her convinced to go up to the police. I said, look, I'll take you up there now. I'll get my barrister, he said. And I said, you don't say anything unless they're going to offer you immunity. That was several years ago, the man said, and he hadn't seen her since. She went underground. The woman was known to wear wigs while working as a prostitute on Manchester Street, he said. Those wigs, for some reason, disappeared after Reynolds was killed. Don't know, that sounds a bit weird. Stuff has contacted the woman, but she has not responded to requests for comment. I don't know why she would. The man said he'd spoken to another woman who claimed she visited a home not long after the murder and saw several people with a large amount of money. You know, they mentioned the $2,200 in his pocket and the tray in his office where he paid suppliers, but they didn't say how much money that was, I don't think, like if it was large amounts of money. It was obvious to her, the woman got into a conversation with the group which included the woman seeking an alibi, and one of them said they fucked up. It was obvious to her that they had done it. The man said he and the second woman were both prepared to make formal statements to police about what they'd seen and heard. She said, I'll go to the police station if you come with me. I said, well, with what you've got there and with what I've got, it is enough to charge them. The man said he last spoke with police in January when he told them the second woman needed an agreement in writing that she'd be paid a reward upon conviction. I think she deserves something because of the bloody underworld out there. You don't know what people have got to live with. The information has got to be worth something to her. Stuff has spoken to the man since, and he's confirmed police have contacted him again, and he's declined to comment further. Detective Inspector Gorrie refused to talk about specifics of the homicide investigation other than to say it remained active. Like all cold case inquiries, we vigorously pursue any active lines of inquiry. To resolve these cases for the family of the victim is why we come to work. I'd encourage anyone with information or who was involved in John's murder to come forward and speak to the police. This is Frances Reynolds' younger sister, Frances, who lives on the West Coast, said she thought about her brother every day and was encouraged to hear that someone had come forward claiming to have information about his murder. Every time I go to Christchurch, I think there's some prick over here who killed my brother and he's walking around free. We'd just love it if somebody came forward. We'd be over the moon. And of course, there's information here about who you can contact, where you can listen to the podcast as well, and of course that's all going to be in the description box below. Wow, there's some interesting stuff there. I I don't know how I feel about this lady asking for... First, there was some asking for immunity. Depending on what role they played, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't know what you guys think about immunity from prosecution. Depends what information she's got and depending what role she had to play. Tell me what you think in the description box below. But the reward, never heard that before, and I haven't seen anything that mentions that a reward was offered. So this is just something this lady wants for information. But, don't you just come forward out of the conscience, of you knew what was going on and you want to get it off the chest and you want the family to have answers and all that. But I guess maybe for some people that are down and out, money is really important. I don't know, maybe she's so scared of the underworld here that she wants to escape afterwards. I have no idea. Let me know what you think in the description box below. I know it was a bit of a long one. I'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out with me. This is TJ. See you guys.